All right, here we go. We are officially off and running on the IG Live, which today, again, I told you guys I was doing a series of mental things. And this is one of those that is mentally for people who've been doing this for a while, but at the same time, Sheeta and other folks who will watch this is also a cautionary tale. Because one of the things about this profession is it isn't tied to normal business in certain ways. It is in a lot more ways than actors like to give credit to, but there's a way in which it's not tied to regular business, and we don't even realize sometimes that we have become a victim to, hey man, I paid my dues. We don't even realize we've become a victim to it because, once again, going all the way back to early things I talked about, can't get fired from a job you don't have. Well, why in the world would I even come up with a title like, I paid my dues? Okay, so what does it mean to you? You tell yourself right now, in your head, say to yourself, what does paid my dues mean? What has it meant your whole life? Well, we don't tend to associate that with being an actor for a bunch of reasons. But what does it mean? In my opinion, to 99.8% of the planet, what I paid my dues means is directly related to time and seniority. Now, remember, seniority, as we tend to place it, we place it a lot. Hey, Cassandra, we place seniority and the idea of how you get from point A, slow climb up point B, point C, to where not that you're looking down at anyone, but you have achieved, raised, brought yourself to a place professionally where in other industries, and almost all of them, you can say, without even having to say, I paid my dues. It's a stature thing, it's a status thing, but it's predicated on time and position. And so because of that, whether it's a professor who's tenured, it's just a form of the corporate ladder, right, everyone? Okay, so let's agree, 4 or 5 minutes into this live, that the way we tend to look at I paid my dues has to do with a degree of seniority. But here is the problemo. The problemo is in the metaphorical Hollywood, because Hollywood is everywhere now. Every major city, Hollywood is everywhere because of digital technology, and also because of the slightly disconcerting and also confusing issues with the impact on show business of the idea of influencers. But the point being is Hollywood doesn't work that way. And this is part of the problem. And so you have a twofold problem, you guys, that goes on with the idea of I paid my dues. And they're actually both related to show and business. Because I paid my due in show and I paid my dues in business have two tragic ends for us if we don't pay attention to it. What is the I paid my dues in show? Okay, it means that you've been doing this a long time, or you've gone to a ton of classes, or more notably, you've even booked jobs. So, hey man, I know what I'm doing. I don't have to get any better. I paid my dues. Seniority. Time. Well, that's, with all respect to everyone, that would literally be the same thing as, hey, I'm 18 years old now. I don't have to evolve anymore as a human being. Tragically, that's a huge percentage of the globe. I'll give you 21, 22 getting out of a higher learning university. But the problem is, a lot of us don't go past and don't evolve much. I think there was an old stat that I knew about that said 89 or some percent of people do not increase their vocabulary over the age of 21. I guess because they paid their dues in school. This is my point, you guys. I paid my dues is another way of saying, I'm going to stay here. I'm good here because I've worked really hard to get here and you're not here yet. So you have to do certain things like respect me, listen to me, be a subordinate of mine. These are all things that fall into the paid my dues categories of other industries, inclusive of music and sports. Same thing. If somebody achieves the place of being the violin chair one in a symphony and a recognized symphony, well, they've earned that spot. But if they don't keep maintaining this skill set and staying up there, someone will take their chair one day. That is for sure. Same thing as sports and quarterbacks. You get hurt. People say it all the time. You lose your job to an injury because somebody comes in who was sitting on the bench and they simply are better. So paid your dues can work in a couple of different ways. The tragedy as an actor is it becomes an arrogant attitude. And this is my concern, and this is one of the reasons why I bring it up, because Hollywood does not function off of time. Hell, at this point, it doesn't even function off of credits unless you have reached the 1%. Yes, I will agree with you that the analogy of I paid my dues in regular corporate America cronyism world business applies to you if you've reached the place of being an actor in which you're offer only. And if you get to offer only, I wouldn't even call that paid my dues. That's the whole point. Because there are people who become offer only who somehow pull that off in 2 or 3 years. It happens. Yes, we all would like that to happen. But if you get past 2 or 3 years or 4 years, well, if it didn't happen, then it hasn't happened. But the analogy to pay my dues that applies in other areas of this profession doesn't apply to you as an actor. And this is a huge danger to me because, as I've said for many years, and not ever trying to offend anyone, I'm not. I promise I'm not. This is about a level of complacency that happens simply because we are older. I'm literally about to do something towards a professional in this industry who knows me, who's at the monster top of this profession. I'm about to do this. After all my credits, after my career, at my age, I'm about to go after this individual in a certain way regarding a specific thing. No, I'm not going to say what they are. But the point being is, someone like myself could easily say, well, I shouldn't have to do that. That's the phrase I want you to write down today. Well, I shouldn't have to do that. I booked, shouldn't have to do it. Yeah, you shouldn't. Okay. So you shouldn't have to. But guess what? Paying your dues as an actor is not equivalent to what it is in other industries if all you've been doing for the most part is being in a particular marketplace, breathing with a headshot. Again, not trying to offend anyone, but time for actors does not function the same way as time put in as an employee at a company. It's not the same thing. I get that if you put in hard work and you put in and you show up on time and people, your colleagues enjoy working with you and you are proficient at what you do, then you are in line for a promotion. Yes. And that's how we sometimes render the idea of I've paid my dues. And I can't tell you guys the frustration that I've had across the course of my career when it comes to the business of show business and this damn conversation. Because somebody books, 3 co-stars. Let's just say, I'm just making some shit up because it's what I do. Let's just say somebody books 3 co-stars and 5 commercials in their first 3 years in any decent sized marketplace. Okay? San Francisco, LA, Chicago, New York, Paris, London, Sydney, something like that. And then what happens is exactly what happens to a lot of us. People just sit. Oh, I'm working now. Oh, I got this. Oh, again, subconscious, I'm saying it out loud so you be aware of it. Oh, I know how all this works. I got this down. Please go back. Go all the way back and re-watch my IG Live. It's on the YouTube channel that says framework. Yeah, we all learn the framework of this profession over the course of time. But ever try to live in a house that just has the framing built with no finished roof or doors or plumbing? Yeah, not a very comfortable live. Once again, can't get fired from a job you don't have. See how all these add on to Lego and stack up with one another? This is a curriculum mentality that I bring to you guys. Be careful about this kind of complacency. I get it all the time. I hear from veteran actors about, well, what am I supposed to do when I have a conflict with one of my representatives? What am I supposed to do when I have a challenge between my manager and one of my agents? What do I do if I want to leave one of them? Do I have to leave both of them? What do I write in the email? What do I say? These are all things, guys, that I'm extraordinarily proficient at, and I have no issue saying it because I've been doing it for years. I've been discussing it for years. I've been consulting it for years. You get proficient at this kind of stuff by never failing to engage. This is part of my frustration with, hey man, I paid my dues because I have credits, but you haven't worked in 3 years? Hollywood doesn't give a shit, metaphorically, about any form of big marketplace, doesn't care what you used to do. It doesn't hold the same weight for us. And this is my concern when it comes to somebody who, maybe has worked a certain amount in a marketplace. And then as it happens to all of us, roller coaster, right? You're not working as much, but you cop an attitude that somehow is, well, I don't have to know that. I don't have to do that. I don't have to this. I don't have to that because I'm ... You ain't ... unless you're offer only. Got bad news for you. I mean, I've gone through a stretch where I haven't auditioned a ton commercially, and yet I know everybody in town. I mean, this stuff happens, you guys. And a lot of times what I see us equate it to is this. How much we think we understand the business, yet oddly struggle with self-motivation. Yet oddly struggle with, what am I supposed to do next? What am I supposed to do now? I did blah, so I should be blah, but I'm not. And so, but I paid my dues. Do you guys get the circle that I'm discussing? Somebody can just give me a thumbs up. Yeah. Look at Will. That's, wow. There's a man who just recently bought my book and is reading it. You're damn right. And you know what's funny about pride, Will? Which a lot of people don't realize? The 7 deadly sins, the sin upon which all the other 6 are built, pride. And amazingly, Will, the pride, using the 7 deadly sins as a backdrop to my book, pride was the hardest one to write for me. In terms of trying to find the right subject matter that I wanted to find to position it from the perspective of the dangers of pride. And that is what it is. But unfortunately, it doesn't work the same way. You have to understand, I've been doing this for a while. I've seen a lot of people come and go. And rarely do I see someone pick themselves back up, be it from early success, be it from the disappointment of a key contact or two not helping them out, be it from the fact that they came out with a great representative and then they started to work a little bit and then they didn't and the rep dropped them. It doesn't matter how, this is the key, it doesn't matter how you wind up at a certain point going, shit, what happened? It doesn't matter. You want to know why? Because shit happens. And you don't have to go back and watch Forrest Gump for that. It happens, y'all. The problem that I see, and again, I saw this, you have to understand, I saw this a ton at the Actors Network, especially after I created lifetime membership, which was based on 3 years, because most people didn't make it 3 years in Los Angeles. They went back home or they went on to something else, which is fine. Again, I don't carry any judgment about any of those things. I'm only going to kind of go and look at you sideways if you tell me one thing, but nothing about what you're doing or what you've done matches that. And that's the hey, I've paid my dues as an actor. Because paid my dues in life tends to equal time spent. And when we credibilize ourselves by working, which I completely understand, then you add credibility in your brain to time, breathing with a headshot, and you quietly cop an attitude. I'm not saying you're a jerk. That's not what I'm saying. Just copying an attitude does not have to be somebody that you can't get along with. It doesn't have to be somebody that's aggravating. This is a very quiet attitude. It's not necessarily puffing your chest out and pulling your shoulders back and going, I've been here. Although I've had people say that to me. You know, they always go, yeah, I got it. But they're not doing anything. My thing will always be, how much is I paid my dues keeping you from doing something similar to what I'm about to do towards one of the top people in this industry for a very, very specific reason regarding my career. Because you wake up at a certain point, man, and you go, oh, well, I'm not getting any younger. And this is a decent opportunity. And this person is aware of my existence as a performer and my credibility and my skill set. So they're not going to just wake up one day and come to me because I'm not an offer-only guy. I'm not. So I'm going to have to go poke the bear, kick the sleeping dog, whatever you want to call it. Be proactive. Yes, Kevin still does it too. And I can assure you, I've paid my dues. There's no doubt. But, you know, I'm going to use a phrase. Everybody understand where I'm coming from. Nobody panic. I'm going to use a phrase that's common in life if you've ever gone to therapy. Or even if you've heard this in just walking through your life. You want to be right? Or do you want to be happy? And doing this particular person's show that I'm discussing would make me happy. It also, potentially, depending on if I could ever make it happen, we'll see, it also could alter the trajectory of my career. But you know what I'm going to have to do to make it happen? I'm going to have to not take the attitude, hey, I've paid my dues. That's the only way. Because otherwise I'll just sit around and go, well, I have all these credits, and I've been doing this for this long, and I've done 2 of your shows before, and you know who I am. And you offered me a movie role once that you then took back, but now you have this show, and I really need to be on that show badly. And you gotta want to have me on that show because I'm really good for it. That's all great. Just ran all through that in my head with you guys in this IG Live. And you know what? Nothing I said means shit unless I actually go after this person and make them aware, which is going outside of the idea of I paid my dues. I shouldn't have to. Yeah, I agree with you. Shouldn't have to. Just don't know how much value shouldn't carries to you. This is part of the problem. I mean, I could sit around, you guys, I could come up with 1,000 scenarios, 1,000, no question. If I spent enough time, I could come up with 1,000 scenarios of situations, conversation, text and an email, whatever it may be, in which many veterans of Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Sydney, Paris, London would have no idea how to handle. Hey, Rennie, good to see you. They'd have no idea how to handle them. None. They'd have a thought. They'd be, oh, like, well, I'm going to, and then stop themselves. And the reason I know this is because during the 8.5 years that I took away from after closing the Actors Network and sat down somewhere and all that to write this book and a couple of others that don't have anything to do with show business, during that time frame, during that period of time, it's amazing to me the number of people who reached out to me for advice. Of course, I always want the advice for free because my tenureship regarding business or show business doesn't seem to hold the same water as it does at a university. Wonder why? Well, I paid my dues. That's why. Because people decide over the course of time that being around a profession, understanding how a profession functions, framework, means that I understand how to automatically go into my own mind and spit out all of the code. Yes, I'm using that word for a reason. All of the code to accomplish the next action or the next thing that I want to. No, it doesn't. And it doesn't for this reason, because practice makes perfect. That's why. This is the challenge for hey, I've paid dues. Because hey, I've paid my dues in this profession tends to mean that you've been sitting on the shelf, literally and metaphorically, as an actor for a decent period of time. Not engaging, not doing a lot. And guess what you forget? You forget what you know. You forget what you learned. You forget a degree of tweak and proficiency and expertise that's required to have an incredibly subjective profession and a communication be languaged and done in the sense of what you really want it to do. We wind up just being a little more, bear with me, clumsy. It's not a bad word. You know, it's like a Labrador puppy, only different. Okay, wherever you are, that should be funny. If you've ever encountered a Labrador puppy who just comes barreling through the door and knocks all the shit over, you know. The point being is, guys, is that we're not trying to be clumsy. But we tend to think in this profession that just because you've gotten older and have had a picture the whole time, that somehow you're smarter about a ton of possibilities than maybe you are. Because if you don't spend time dealing with it, you're going to lose your proficiency. Every skill set is diminishing. Some of them purely by age, athletes. Some of them purely by age, musicians. Your fingers may not move as fast as they used to be able to play that piece of music, violin, chair one, and it's just time to go. And some of them by this. Some of them by instant reaction, natural knee-jerk, don't have to think about it. You know, I talk about this all the time, actually, when I discuss accents and dialects, right? Because I'll just spend like half a day, and I'll just sort of pop round when I'm talking about, you know, go to the grocery store, someplace like that, and I'll just decide, actually, I'm going to be British that day. And I do it just naturally to sort of keep that up a bit, right? Because I never know when I'm going to get something in which I actually have got to go sound like Ricky Gervais. So I do that on purpose. I do it with Australians that I know. I do it all the time, okay? And I only do it just to keep a little bit. I mean, obviously, if I was going to get an audition and I was going to have to put in really the time in any of the ones that I do well enough, I believe, to be hired, yeah, I'd spend 2 or 3 or 4 hours doing nothing but dialing in on it. But that's not how most of what we have to do as actors regarding the business of show business happens for us when it comes to the proficiency of what you need to have that you might be giving away by believing you've paid your dues. So this IG Live today, guys, is a warning because that's a common colloquialism in our life. This is what I do, is I take things in our lives that can be dangerous to our careers and I address them. And we all are around people who aren't actors. They're working at a company, doing a thing. Okay, cool. And what you watch them do is you watch them pay their dues, and maybe they get another job and they get a step up and it's not a lateral move, and then they pay their dues there and they get another job. Okay, we do that as actors. If you're working all the time, and I mean all the time, that's, yeah, I mean, I make a joke with a couple of people that I know that, they booked a certain job or they did a certain thing or they achieved a certain place, and then Hollywood just backs up an ATM and puts it in your front yard. And you keep going up, 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 up. And there's a ceiling for that. You can look at anybody's career who's been successful. Sometimes people walk away by choice. Sometimes they don't walk away by choice. Whether it's Jim Carrey or somebody else, Rick Moranis. I mean, some people just, choose to leave Hollywood. Some people choose to take a long time off from Hollywood. And then some people don't do it by choice. Try to imagine that. Try to imagine having been close to the pinnacle, being offer only for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Yeah, you got money, okay? And all of a sudden the phone stops ringing. Just stops. Now what are you going to do? Because you were here, so you can't go out, for lack of a better phrase, and swing a hammer and a nail and drill it into 2x4s. That's just a statement about doing a very simple, what are you going to do? People say all the time, well, Kevin, you probably wouldn't do this project, you probably wouldn't do that project because you blah, blah. No, it's not true at all. I've paid my dues. But I will happily go do a short if I have a strong emotional desire to play that character. I have done, ultra low budget films for $110 a day if I feel strongly about it. I don't cop the attitude of I've paid my dues, even though I know I have, for sure, by a billion miles. And also that I stay engaged with the elements of what it takes to pay your dues. I'm just telling you, a lot of times this profession happens in short, strong bursts. And when the wave hits, you absolutely want to ride it for as far as that wave at that moment in time goes. But here's what happens, and I'm going to finish with this. When you catch that wave, and I have a couple times, and it goes, and you're like, cool, man, this is the shit finally is just going to take off. And it's going to be a rocket ship. If that doesn't happen, the wave always slows. And this is what happens to us. And it happens before we even realize it, and then it's too late. The second that wave crests, and you can tell by activity, and it starts to go down, how far down before the next wave goes up is going to be directly related to the attitude of I've paid my dues. That's the issue. Because if you don't get to the place of offer only, if you don't jump into some monster jobs that makes everybody in your marketplace aware of you, then that crest starts trending downward and it goes really slow for a couple months and then it just drops off like a cliff. And what happens to most of us while we're busy going to the mailbox and picking up residual checks, etc., is by the time we wake up and realize, shit, that wave didn't last, it's too late. Because that's when your target list, that's when your master contact list, that's while you've got the current heat happening, is when you actually have to jump up, stop counting on your representatives to do it for you. They're doing their job. I'm talking about not the 10% or the 15%, the 90 or the 85% you're responsible for. And this idea of, well, yeah, of course I'm riding a wave. I've paid my dues. Well, I'm on this wave. I've paid my dues. Equals complacency. And I know that's aggravating and it sounds unfair and all that crap, but guys, I got bad news for you. The people you may admire, whoever you admire in your life, especially when it's not in the world of acting, they didn't stop. They kept pushing. They kept working. They kept going. So I understand where you're coming from. I do. I get it. Because pursuing this career and pursuing this profession, especially when you're finally working some or have some heat or some energy, there's no promise of any return. I get it. There's no ROI. I understand. Right in front of us. It's not a time in, money out business. But as I wrap up today's live, And there's no show on Wednesday or Friday, guys. I have to go out of town, but I'll be back on Monday. But there is a free issue time tomorrow, so come to that if you have questions, okay? But as you get into those places, just remember, yeah, I know, I get it. You paid some degree of dues, but there's always somebody who's paid more. So if you want to keep that wave going, you want to get to a wave, you want to ride it, and then not have the down from the wave be so far, you got to keep pushing. You got to keep working. It's just what you have to do. And you can't get caught up in, hey man, I paid my dues. Because I assure you, there are many of us who have. Okay? All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your Monday. That's my time. We're at 30 minutes. So I'll see y'all next Monday, and try to come to the issue time tomorrow, noon PST if you can. Okay. See you guys later.